Searching for the Truth. Chapters 3 and 4. The Town of Wildwoods. The morning arrives with clear skies and a gentle summer breeze that hints at a pleasant outing. June casts a final look into the polished glass and nods with satisfaction. She took quite some time preparing for this trip into town. Choosing a subdued, earth-toned frock dress over a thick smock, both falling just above her bare knees, and a pair of brown flats worn on bare feet. She brushed and styled her hair into a pair of ponytails, tying them off with strips of leather, leaving long ringlets to bounce on either side. The girl staring back at her looks no more than 10 years old. No ribbons, bows or vibrant colors today. They'd only add to the ridiculousness of the ensemble. Still, it will be instrumental in getting the information she needs to save her godparents. She requires one more thing, which she hopes to find in the pantry. Heading down the stairs, she hears Dame Forrester's call through the open window.
June, are you ready, dear?
Coming, Grandmother.
She calls back. Hurrying her steps to the kitchen pantry, she retrieves a basket of the small bubbly pies she saw last night. Taking a deep breath, she heads outside to join the others already in conversation.
Really, Cedric, must you wear the cowl with the cloak? You look so plain.
Lowering the cowl, Cedric smiles.
Exactly, ma'am. What better way to remain unnoticed? Just another sad sod drowning his troubles in a mug of ale.
Dame Forrester tisks at him.
At least I'll be able to proudly show off, June.
Hearing the cottage door close, Cedric turns, extending a hand to assist his new mistress into the coach. One look at her leaves him doubled over in laughter. Needing a moment to pull himself together, he closes the coach door and addresses the dame through the opened window.
I'm sure you would, ma'am, if your granddaughter was joining us today. But alas, the changelings of your beloved forest have taken her in exchange for one of their own.
What?
Dame Forrester brushes him aside with a hand, to peer out at the child.
Oh, June.
June flushes, but ignores the woman's dismay, stepping to the rear of the coach.
I'll ride the footboot and hop off as we enter town.
Meeting at the wooden platform, Cedric lifts her up and sets her in place, giving him the opportunity to examine the bruising on her exposed arms and legs. He blinks the moment he realizes there are no traces of magical glow in his vision. Looking up, he confronts her.
These bruises are real.
Yes.
She confirms, feeling uncomfortable, as she stares back at him, realizing he's using magic to study her.
You have a sight?
Now it's his turn to feel self-conscious, and he responds with a sheepish smile. Eager to continue, she declares,
I'm ready. Let's not keep Grandmother waiting any longer.
With a curt nod, he leaves her. Climbing into the driver's seat and pulling up his cowl, he starts the horses down the lane, ready to embark on their journey. Upon entering the small coastal town, sometime later, the coach slows to a crawl and June hops off. She runs ahead to the freshly whitewashed mercantile, where most of the children like to mill about outside, all hoping for a kindly handout from the older matrons and gossips within. She worked out her plan carefully, and knows staying within view of the prominent paned glass windows of the structure will greatly comfort the dame. Quietly, she joins the throng and takes a seat on the edge of the deck, with her legs swinging in feigned boredom. Along with many other curious onlookers, June glues her gaze to the coach as it comes to a stop next door at the Tavern Inn. Cedric steps down to open the door, offering an assisting hand.
I'll be a few hours, driver.
Dame Forrester informs him, as she steps out and takes the 2 baskets filled with herbs and vegetables he hands her.
Do be sure to have the coach ready by then.
Yes, ma'am.
June smiles to herself, as the children begin to huddle closer in the shaded corners beneath the eaves. Each sucking in a breath, hoping not to be noticed, as the elderly lady walks up the steps to the mercantile and enters with a varied chorus of greetings.
Dame Forrester, how nice to see you again. What brings you?
With the door closing, the only sound that remains is the children's voices. June leans in, listening closely, as one of the taller boys informs the group.
That's the witch.
The youngest girl beside her trembles.
I heard she takes children home and eats them.
One of the older twin boys adds.
At least she didn't come barreling down the street, like that last bunch did.
June lifts the cloth from her basket, revealing the bubbly pies, and picks one up. Breaking the pie in half, she shares it with the scared girl.
The last bunch?
She asks, as she holds out the other half to the speaking twin.
Yeah.
The twin nods, as he takes the offering and gives it to his brother. June listens as she continues to break the bubblies in half, and hands them out among the group.
They literally kicked Joe here out of their way.
He gestures with a thumb to his identical brother.
They were carrying a big wooden crate, down to the docks.
Tell him what they said, Jack.
Mumbles Joe, around a bite of the pastry treat.
When they pushed you away, too.
Licking the sweet blackberry filling from his finger, Jack obliges.
Said.
Smacking his lips, he smiles.
These are good. Who made them?
Grandmother?
June tells him as she waits. She knows the interrogation is coming, and the twins are the leaders of this group. Jack nods again and continues.
Those blighters said, want all your innards blown about the streets, boy, get away.
Murmurs of unease spread through the group, but Jack never takes his discerning eye off June. She's seen that sort of look before, the way the pupils vibrate.
You have the sight of truth, don't you?
June whispers. Jack nods.
And you're all right. Not full of lies, like some folks.
Were the people with the crate lying?
No.
Where'd you come from?
Joe interjects, making the others go still, eyes volleying between the twins and the new girl. June answers truthfully.
Edgewater.
A gasp bursts from the group, and the youngest girl wiggles closer to June, smiling in awe.
Your awe.
Hush, Ash.
Joe cuts in.
Let Jack finish. She's got no glamours, everyone. There's no sign of magic on her. What we're seeing is real.
A collective gasp now ripples through the gathering, as all eyes turn back to Jack. He crouches before her, locking eyes. June realizes, this is her moment to be accepted or outcast. Jack raises a thin brow.
Your parents?
I don't know. I was placed with an aunt and uncle and would have remained there, were it not for the man dressed all in black who came and offered them gold to buy me. I was scared of him, so I ran away.
The children inch closer, with mixed exclamations. One girl squeaks in alarm, clamping both hands over her mouth.
Jack?
Says Joe, open-mouthed.
It was men from Shadow dressed all in black. They carted the crate down to the docks. One sits there now, carting it, while the other three went to get pissed in the tavern.
Everyone turns, to look down the lane. All but Jack. June returns her gaze to him, and doesn't pull back when Jack grips her arm, looks at the bruises, then back into her eyes.
Do you know the code?
Yes.
You'll need a name.
I'm using the name June now.
Jack nods as he stands.
June it is then.
Turning to the group, he warns.
Everyone, stay away from the men from Shadow. That's an order.
As if by magic, June had transformed into one of Jack's crew, now being addressed as a unit. She stands too.
What's so important about the dogs?
The information comes from every side. Ash answers first, being the closest.
Haven't you heard? Tomorrow, a boat will dock and carry off a group that's coming here in secret.
The tall lad adding.
They're to arrive today. It's supposed to be hush-hush, but anyone can see the inn is being turned upside down in preparation for them.
How can you be certain?
My ma works there as a maid. Last night, Pa complained when she arrived home late from work. She told him, rich guests had demanded privacy. Everything's got to be ready before they arrive. Once they do, all the staff will be sent home with full pay until they leave.
She didn't happen to say who was arriving, did she?
No, they don't tell her things like that. They just ordered the rooms scrubbed top to bottom.
Another girl speaks up.
The cookery's busy too. My dad works in the smokehouse and said he's never seen so many meat orders given all at once.
The children fall silent as the sound of pounding footsteps is heard. All heads turn to see the stable boy running towards them, coming to a stop between Jack and Joe, desperately trying to catch his breath, with his clenched hand pressed to his chest.
What is it, Sully?
Jack asks, concern evident in his voice. Sully extends his hand, revealing 5 coppers and 1 silver piece. Using a variation of sight, gifted to him by the fates, to discern magic from reality, Joe looks and whistles.
They're real.
Sully manages to say, in between winded gasps.
Men from Shadow. Ordered horses. Going after. Royal's carriage.
He takes a loud gulp of air.
Rob and kill.
As Sully continues to pant, clutching a stitch in his side, the sound of 3 horseback riders grows closer. When they come into view, June notices their attire, black coats, black breeches, and black hoods, as they lean over the necks of their galloping horses, thundering away from town towards the north. She remains vigilant, as the group redirects their focus, back to the money. She alone witnesses Cedric leave the inn, and hurry to unharness one of the dame's coach horses. Seizing the moment, as he fumbles with the hitching post knot, she bolts, down the steps, across the dusty square. With a speedy leap, she uses her hands on the horse's rump, to fling herself up and over onto the steed's back. The moment the rope falls limp and Cedric turns to mount, her heels dig in. The horse breaks into a run, leaving Cedric to stand alone, watching in horror as June gallops after the men in black. Warnings. Squinting against the brightness of the sun, June can just make out flashes of black clothes, cresting a small rise far up the road. Determination floods her veins, and she urges her mount faster. Her heart pounding in sync with the rhythmic thunder of hooves on the earth-packed lane. The mare gives her all, stretching her legs, sides heaving with exertion, but she is no match for the sleeker stallions that vanish around a curve. Despite this, June presses on. Riding along the earth-packed lane, where the fragrance of freshly cultivated soil from a nearby farm mixes with the increasing temperature. With no discernible turn-offs, and with the blessing of the fates, she could still catch up when they stop to prepare their ambush. A few miles farther from town, as her horse slows to a winded walk, she realizes she's lost them. A fork in the path ahead mocks her. She reins in the mare, her head swiveling in both directions.
Which way?
A twig snaps to her left.
Lost your way, little girl?
Asks a low voice, rumbling from behind a roadside tree. June thinks quickly, remembering the way she's dressed.
Little girl indeed. I'm looking for grandmother's house.
June answers softly, playing to the image evoked by her pigtails. Heart racing, she hopes she hasn't fallen into the trap the men from Shadow may have set up.
But I can't remember the way.
A figure steps onto the road, adjusting his brown cloak tightly about himself. June quickly turns the mare's head to the right and calls out in a cracking voice.
Thank you, sir, but I just remembered.
Her heels dig into the horse's sides, and the mare breaks into a trot.
June, wait.
The voice no longer growls. It's familiar. June turns in disbelief to see Cedric, his brown hood thrown back, in hot pursuit, nearly tripping over his own feet. One tug on the reins stops the mare.
Cedric?
Mounting the mare behind her, he hisses in her ear.
I should pull you from this beast and spank you soundly for the fright you've given your grandmother. What possessed you to go chasing after a group of strangers?
June's back stiffens as she counters.
Most likely the same thing that possessed you.
Taking the reins from her hands, he turns the mare to the other forked trail.
They were in the tavern already deep into their mugs.
He explains sternly as they ride.
They practically sang about their plans to rob a coach full to the brim with gold and jewels that would arrive today. I had hoped to ride around them using the back way through the forest to warn the coach.
June relaxes against his chest.
It's a carriage, not a coach, and the riches it carries is the royal family of fire, coming to town to board a ship on the morrow. 4 men from Shadow carried an explosive crate to the docks this morning. One of them sits there now guarding it. I suppose they plan to use it to destroy the ship, along with the royals, should this first attempt fail.
Cedric hushes her, pointing to an encampment shimmering in the heat waves, made by golden flames far ahead. A lone man from Shadow sits feeding a fire. Cedric guides the horse into the woods, to bypass the trouble. With the encampment behind them, June finally speaks.
Is grandmother's cottage nearby?
Look up.
Cedric points.
See just past the cut in the tree line where wisps of smoke float? It's from the chimney.
June spots it now and smiles, just as a massive, circling shadow catches her attention. The sight is breathtaking, as a magnificent winged creature soars through the sky with grace and power. Its wingspan stretches wide, casting a shadow that engulfs the landscape.
What's that over there?
She asks, open-mouthed. Following her finger, Cedric smiles.
The messenger from Airedale your grandmother spoke of last night. Cover your ears for a moment as I call to her.
Once her ears are shielded, he lets out a piercing hawk's cry. In response, a reverberating call echoes through the air, and within seconds, a flying figure circles back around from behind a cloud. This figure, with majestic wings adorned in white feathers, is none other than a woman, her wings tucked against the graceful curves of her body. With a slight lean backward, the winged Airedalian female gracefully extends her wings, just in time to pull up short, and keep from crashing into their startled horse.
You're beautiful,
June whispers in awe, as the messenger flutters her wings, to perform a gentle landing on two booted feet. Smiling, the woman tucks blonde locks behind her ear and whispers back.
Thank you, miss.
Report.
Cedric commands. Pulling her attention off the child, the messenger stiffens like a soldier at attention.
This morning, 4 men traveled from the encampment to town, in a wagon carrying a single large cargo crate, after a heated discussion over a second, which they left behind. Judging by the crawl they kept their horse moving at, I'd say they feared jarring the cargo. Your own coach traveled to the same town shortly after.
June interrupts, eager to intercept and warn her godparents.
Did you happen to see where the 3 riders that left town went? Or maybe a carriage coming this way?
Yes, miss. They went off-road and wait at the halfway point between the fork and the lane to Dame Forrester's home. There is a carriage bearing the colors of fire traveling fast. It should pass this way within the hour.
What colors does the boat fly that's coming into port?
An elven ship, flying the colors of life, less than a day's travel away.
Both June and Cedric speak at once.
Cedric, go fetch grandmother. Tell her the news, and that I've gone to warn the royals.
Gale, warn the ship about the cargo. It must be handled with extreme care and disposed of before they hit the water rapids.
Cedric's intense stare and furrowed brows catch June's attention, as she twists around to look at him.
What?
They ask in unison. June quickly slides off the mare, knowing her friend will need it for Dame Forrester, but Cedric dismounts in a flash and grips her arm to prevent her running for the royal carriage.
What did you mean about the water rapids?
June asks, failing to tug herself free.
If a good jarring is the trigger, then the white water rapids is where it will happen. Close enough to witness from shore but far enough there's no danger of getting hurt. Now what's this about you warning the royals without me?
You heard grandmother. I'm the only one they'll let close without question.
Cedric's grip tightens, anticipating her bolt for freedom and locking her upper body in place. Her legs nearly go out from under her, trying to run off by themselves.
Not without me you don't.
June rubs her strained shoulder with a scowl.
Fine, but...
Using the hand of the arm he's trapped, she separates the front of his cloak to study his attire beneath. He startles, tossing her away, as he pulls his cloak tight about himself again.
What are you doing?
He demands, but June ignores the question and nods approvingly. He chose the same clean garments, from the night before.
Lower your cowl and place your cloak just behind your shoulders, as you did last night.
Trepidation hoods his eyes, but he obeys. She studies him, walking a circle around him.
It could work.
Taking hold of the horse's reins, she turns and heads off in the direction of the cottage.
Come along if you're coming. You're about to be promoted to the elven envoy to the royals of fire.
Gale giggles, as she whispers to Cedric.
What an adorable child. Who is she?
The dame's granddaughter and she's no child.
He sighs.
She also hasn't been wrong yet. I'll tend to her. See my aunt's ship gets the warning.
Yes, sire.
With his longer strides, He quickly catches up to his mistress, and he listens as she lays out her plan. To his chagrin, it just might work. Within the hour, both Cedric and June peer up the road at the thundering carriage, whipping around the bend toward them. June gasps in delight as the careening carriage's side is revealed, bearing the fire emblem on the door. Hiding behind the trees, Cedric pulls his cloak close and lifts his cowl back into place. June darts onto the shoulder of the road, her arms flailing to wave it down.
Jaden,
She calls.
it's me, June. Stop!
Alarmed, Cedric rushes out of hiding, grabbing her arm yet again, to tug her back onto safe grass.
Are you itching for death? Get a grip on yourself and get behind me.
The shocked driver pulls hard on the reins, having witnessed the hooded figure trying to pull a girl back into the woods. The horses skid to a stop, just feet from them. June smiles, as the driver squints at her, his brows furrowed in guarded concentration. Suddenly, a surprised look of recognition softens his features.
My prince, it's her!
The coach door slams open and out jumps Prince Phoenix, pulling his sword from its sheath. As soon as it's exposed to the air, the lava-infused blade bursts into flame.
By the fates, unhand the girl or meet my wrath, you misshaped worm.
Still using his code name, June interjects with a grin.
Put that thing away, Jaden, before you hurt yourself, and come greet me proper.
Head bowed, Cedric whispers into June's ear.
Tell me I don't have to travel with that bag of hot gas.
No, remember the plan? It'll just be you and the driver. Unless you have a better idea.
June looks up curiously. He remains begrudgingly silent. He knows she and the royals will be safe in Dame Forrester's cottage as she proposed.
Didn't think so.
Whispers June.
Now behave yourself. We're in the company of royalty.
Cedric coughs discreetly as he relinquishes his hold of her arm. Stepping back, he bows to the Prince of Fire Heights. The respectful greeting goes unnoticed, as Prince Phoenix stares open-mouthed at the girl, his flaming sword slipping from his grip, to lay harmlessly on the road. Hurried steps carry the prince across the distance, and he draws June into his arms, hugging her tight. Cedric observes the boy, noting the familiarity in the gesture. With deep bronze skin, crimson hair, and a muscled frame, the boy strikes an imposing figure, though he can't be more than 15. Cedric doesn't detect any signs of a glamour along the prince's edges, so he stays silent, and lets the reunion play out, quietly wondering exactly who his mistress is. June Forrester, granddaughter to the guardian of Wildwoods. Able to disarm a member of the strongest known royal family, with just her presence. Was that her gift? Some sort of protective shield, akin to the dame's? She ran into danger without a second thought and somehow extracted a wealth of information from the village populace in under an hour, without ever having stepped foot on their streets before today. Could she have unearthed his own secret? In stunned silence, Cedric watches the coachman dab his nose with a kerchief. Tears of apparent joy stream down his cheeks into his smile lines. Suddenly, Cedric's arm is pumped as a hefty leather coin purse is pressed into his hand.
Thank you, sir. Take this reward for returning the girl to us. She's worth every gold piece, and so much more. The royals of Fire Heights shall forever be in your debt.
I couldn't possibly.
Cedric stammers, fading into silence, when he notes Prince Phoenix's ashen face. June must have told him of the impending attack on his family. Prince Phoenix returns to his sword, sliding the retrieved blade back into its sheath. The boy straightens in a knightly fashion, befitting his royal blood, and addresses Cedric with a newfound dignity and gravitas. Cedric recognizes the effect from hundreds of hours spent at noble court.
Sir, I beg forgiveness for my actions.
Says Prince Phoenix.
Not only have you returned a most valuable treasure to us, you bravely rushed to save our lives as well. Would you kindly reveal yourself and tell me your name?
Removing his cowl, the elf slips his arms free, letting the front folds of his cloak fall across his back, still masking his disfigurement. Again, he offers a courtly bow.
I'm Cedric, my prince.
After a study of the elven man, Prince Phoenix turns back to June, mouthing the word "wow" before speaking.
You two have laid a great plan, and the nephew of the Elven Queen would make a wonderful envoy. But there's just one problem. My parents don't travel with us.
What? June and Cedric gasp in chorus. Formalities forgotten, June gives the prince a piece of her mind.
Jaden, yet another brilliant plan you so carelessly ruin. How can you go and lose your parents at a time like this?
I've not ruined it.
Jaden retorts.
I'm simply pointing out its flaw, and I've not lost my parents. They should be in town by now. Cedric's kinfolk are leading them through some forgotten underground tunnels.
After thinking for a moment, a smile breaks over June's face like a new dawn.
Then the plan can still work. Let the shadow men loot a bit of coin from Brim and Cedric, maybe a jewel or two, and they'll be on their way. With no royalty in the carriage, there's no reason to kill anyone.
Brim's eyes round in alarm, and he whispers to Cedric.
Kill, sir?
That's pub talk after too much ale.
Cedric whispers back.
The true assassination is planned for tomorrow. They'd rather the gold line their pockets instead of going down with the ship, but they won't risk any attack on us in fear it would cancel the voyage. Just robbery.
And the children, sir?
Tucked away in Dame Forrester's spell-protected home. No harm can come to them there.
Good to know, sir. Just one last thing. I trust your sword arm is strong.
Cedric smiles.
Strong and well-trained.
Brim's smile looks forced, but it does smooth some of the worried wrinkles out of his forehead.
I'd be honored, sir, if you would join me in the front of the carriage. Under the seat you'll find a fine smith-crafted sword, should the need arise.
Cedric nods to Brim.
I accept your offer, with my deepest thanks.
Looking much relieved, Brim puts a fist against his chest.
Oh no, sir. Thank you, sir.
Turning back to their charges, the pair discover June cradling the queen's personal chest of jewelry, its ornate design, reflecting the opulence of the royal family, while Prince Phoenix heaves a crate of weapons out of the carriage. Each gives the interior one last look over. Satisfied, Phoenix puts his fists on his hips and proclaims,
That should do it.
We left a small chest of silver along with a few loose jewels.
Adds June.
Off you go. We'd best not keep the robbers waiting.
Cedric almost laughs.
Yes, mistress.
He bows to the prince before climbing onto the driver's cushioned seat and positioning himself to the far side.
By your leave, liege milady.
Bowing to them both, Brim steps up and seats himself, with reins in hand. Cedric's light hand on Brim's elbow stays him from starting the horses, until June and the young royal turn down the lane to the cottage with their burdens.
Best not keep the robbers waiting.
He echoes. Both laugh nervously as, with a snap of the reins, they drive down the road to be robbed.